Alright, hello, welcome back. I'm the Erroneous Kaiser. You are watching a comic quickie. I'm going to be talking about some of the EC comics that are in my collection. EC comics titles are probably some of the most well-known from the golden age of comic book horror. Tales from the Crypt, Haunt of Fear, Crypt of Terror. Most specifically, Tales from the Crypt. We all know because of the movies and the TV show.
Tales from the Crypt
That was run in the 90s. EC Comics didn't start out doing only horror. They started out actually EC standing for Educational Comics, but later on they changed, after change in editors, they changed their title to Entertaining Comics. Because in the 1950s there was one psychologist who was blaming comic books, among other things, for the, I guess, what he thought was rampant disobedience and delinquency of the children. He attributed it to comics. The comics industry as a whole decided that rather than have the Senate make laws to censor them, they would go about self-censoring themselves, which brought about the Comics Code Authority. You'll see the little stamp on most comics that came out after that time. I'll be talking about 3 comics that have made it into my collection. Not all horror comics, actually. I think I have 7 total from that time period, original EC comics. This right here is the first EC comic to ever make it into my collection. This is Valor number 3. This was first published in 1955. I'm trying to very gingerly hold it right here. You can see the Comics Code Authority stamp right in the corner up here. So this was after that, after the comics industry started to self-censor themselves. The golden and silver ages of comics were slightly larger than what we have for more modern comics. As you can see here, this is a reprint I got for Valor number 3. If I put them on top of each other, the Valor comic, the older one does come out a little bit farther than even the backboard of the more modern one is. We have Joe Orlando would be the artist for the cover here, and actually does some art on the interior as well. Joe Orlando had a very long history in comics. He was editor for many titles. He even went on to be editor for many titles at DC as well. If you're a fan of the Watchmen, actually the only page in the first 12 issues of Watchmen that was not done by Dave Gibbons. There was a single page that was done by Joe Orlando. Issue number 5, page 30, in the Tales of the Black Freighter, the comic within a comic, there was one page that was done by Joe Orlando. The writer for this issue here is Otto Binder. Otto Binder, another big name in comics. He is the co-creator of Supergirl, and actually he did a lot of scripts for a whole bunch of the Marvel family. No, not the Marvel Comics Marvel family, but the Shazam Marvel family. The first story, Cloak of Command, with art by Al Williamson. It was kind of like a Roman Legion story. The second story was called Gentle Whisper, with art by Joe Orlando. It follows the story of some Spanish, I guess, conquistadors and a monk being captives of an Inca tribe, and then it's about God versus, or it's like the European God versus, or the Catholic God, I guess, the Catholic God versus the Inca gods. It's something you might have read in like a Chick tract thing, something like that. It's kind of weird. Well, not so weird for the times, I guess. It has very strong Christian overtones. A short story called The Pyramid by Bernie Kriegstein. It has a slight twist. And the fourth story is called A Debt of Honor, with art by Reed Crandall. The focus of that story is more the Crusades, and with the, I guess, main protagonist as King Richard as he's fighting for Jerusalem. The full title of this comic is Tales of Mortal Combat and Deeds of Valor. But they all have to do something with, history and fighting. Valor is not my favorite title from EC. Actually, even Pirates is better than this. As most of you know, I am a very big horror fan. So let's move on to another title that I am very, very proud to have in my collection. As you can see, there is no Comics Code Authority stamp on here. This is from 1953. Here I have Tales from the Crypt number 35. The art on the cover here is done by Jack Davis. So like Valor, Tales of the Crypt also has 4 stories in here told by the different personas of the Old Witch, the Crypt Keeper, and the Vault Keeper. All the tales written in this comic were written by Al Feldstein. We have a werewolf cover on here, as I said, done by Jack Davis. Jack Davis also does the first story with the werewolf theme titled By the Fright of the Silvery Moon. Jack Davis is a legend for his art that he's done for EC Comics. He's also very well known for all of the art he has done for Mad Magazine. The second story, I guess kind of based in a vampire restaurant. I don't want to give too much away. With art by Joe Orlando, once again. The third tale, called Busted Marriage, has more of a voodoo theme, with art by Jack Kamen. Well, yeah, forgive my pronunciation. Jack Kamen is one of the guys that after EC was kind of having a tough time selling comics because of the new restrictions. They still wanted to publish horror comics, but needed a new way to present it. So he suggested that they switch to magazine size, which is actually how they could put stuff back on the newsstands, because newsstands weren't selling horror comics anymore. But pop it up to a magazine size, and yeah, it was allowed back on there again. So these like black and white horror magazine size comics really got their start around that time. We can thank Jack Kamen for thinking of a new way to get them back onto stands. The final tale, which happens to have a mummy theme, is titled This Wraps It Up, and it features art by Ghastly Graham Ingalls. That was, I guess, his moniker was later on just Ghastly. So in some of the art that he did for Haunt of Fear and some of the other stories he did for other easy titles, you can see just Ghastly as his signature. Some of the best EC horror covers, as far as like monsters and gore and that kind of thing, a lot of them come from Ghastly. And speaking of Ghastly, here is an example of one of his really great covers. I really like this. There is so much going on in this cover. Here we have, this is Haunt of Fear number 18. This as well is a comic from 1953. We have the witch here, and then like little creepy dudes like coming out of eye sockets. Like one guy is a hand. I feel like there's lots of little stuff going on all over the place. I really like it a lot. It's a little rubbed down here, but you can see he signed there Ghastly. We see an adaptation of a Ray Bradbury story. Now, EC started doing in some of their titles Ray Bradbury stories without crediting him, but then I guess maybe they didn't think he would approve, or they didn't think he'd want to be in the news attached to their titles. But when they ended up contacting him to see if he would be okay with them after they kind of got caught for copyright infringement or something, he was like, "Oh yeah, fine." So I guess he got a cut of the money. And then from then on, there's a few titles where Ray Bradbury's name is right on the cover. All the stories in here, except for the Ray Bradbury adaptation, are written by Al Feldstein. Once again, we've got 4 stories. And it wasn't just 4 stories in any of these comics. There's 4 stories, and then there's like a little written prose part. Actually, in this one, we see like a little history of Ray Bradbury himself on the inside cover. But getting to the 4 stories, the first one up, we had Pipe Down, with art by Ghastly. Has to do with a young woman who married a gold digger, okay? A young woman who married an old guy, then, I don't know, meets a young dude who's fixing the pipes. They fall in love and, plot the death of the old dude. And as in the regular style for these types of things, it comes back to get them in the end in a weird or cute way. The second story is titled Bedtime Gory, and has art from George Evans. The third story is Potshot, and we see another appearance of Jack Kamen's art. It's about like 19th century French aristocrat who really loves racing his coach down the streets. And so a lot of times these horror stories can get pretty funny. Like right in the beginning of this, the dad's warning this French aristocrat guy who's, I don't know, yeah, born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Warning him, last time you went out racing, you killed 2 chickens and a peasant child, and you know how much I love chickens. And then the kid says, okay, I won't kill any more chickens, Dad, or something. And then he kills an old man or something, and he's like, but it wasn't a chicken. He's like, but yes, I do love those chickens, especially French fried. And yeah, it is pretty funny right in the beginning. And the fourth and final story is The Black Ferris, the adaptation of a Ray Bradbury story that I think was actually copyrighted in 1948, so a few years before this was published. The art on The Black Ferris was done by Jack Davis. Once again, we see another appearance by him. The Black Ferris is a Ferris wheel that when it goes backwards, the people riding it turn younger, and of course, forward goes older. And a bunch of kids who find out there's one guy going back and forth in age. So they chase him around. And so there you have it. These are 3 and the reprint of some EC titles I have in my collection. I think I have only 7 of the original printings. I think I have a few reprints of certain issues, but 4 more that I'm hoping to show you in an upcoming video. I do have a lot of time on my hands now that I'm just sitting around my house for long periods of time. If you'd like to see more videos like this, or you'd like to see me talk more about what's in my collection, please let me know that down in the comments. If you like the video, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. If you don't want to do any of those, I do understand. I just hope you had a good time watching. I'm the Erroneous Kaiser. See you next time.